Hello and welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. Recently I did a deep dive review into Elden Ring Realm of the Grafted King, the brand new adventure game from Steamforged Games. If you haven't checked it out yet, you will find a link to that review in the video description below. As the video ended up being almost 45 minutes long, I decided that I would make a completely separate video dedicated to showcasing the 54 miniatures that are included in this mammoth-sized game. They're pre-assembled plastic and ready to go right out of the box, and for painters and collectors, I think there's a lot to like here. So let's get into it. You get 4 tarnished miniatures. This is the Astrologer, a sort of sorcerer armed with a staff and wooden shield. They are on a 30mm base, which is standard for the human and regular sized enemies in this game, and you will note that all of the miniatures in this game have textured bases, which is a nice touch. Next is the Prophet, another magic user. The model is holding a spear with a shield slung on their back. In the game, they are equipped with a wooden shield and a finger seal for incantations. I do like this miniature, not overly dynamic, not too fussy. The third tarnished is a really fun one, the Samurai. They are posed drawing their Uchikatana, a classic samurai stance. In the game, they also start with a red thorn round shield, which isn't depicted on the model. Finally, we have my main boy, the Vagabond, a strong, tanky knight. Good solid pose and depicted with his starting weapons of sword and heater shield. However, no halberd on the miniature, and none in the game either. The tarnished miniatures are nice, but where Steamforged Games have really excelled is in the enemies, which are for the most part very, very good. For regular enemies, we start with a rodent of unusual size, an absolute cutie on a 50mm base that has a nice textured flagstone finish. Rats tend to inflict poison, which is one of the nastiest conditions you can pick up in a fight. Our big mama rat is often accompanied by some smaller, but still arguably giant, rats on 30mm bases. You get 6 of these, all the same sculpt, and I think these are great. I like the screeching faces and the hunched pose as though they've been cornered and they're now poised to strike. And if you're going to be dealing with rats, don't be surprised if you find some bats as well. You get 6 of these, all identical, and they are superb. They are the largest of the regular foes and they are presented on 50mm bases. Anybody looking for proxies for use in something like Warhammer Quest Cursed City could do worse than a set of these. The last of the animal foes are the wolves. Again, you get 6 identical sculpts and they are on the regular 30mm bases. These are some of the earliest foes you will meet in the game, and while they have the potential to give a nasty bite, they are generally very straightforward to deal with. Wolves are often accompanied by Godric soldiers, which are the most basic of basic cannon fodder. They do only simple moves and attacks, but for my money, they are some of the nicest looking regular sized enemies in the game. They come on the standard 30mm size bases, and you get 6 in identical poses. I really like the detailing on the shields and the styling of the armour. Slightly more intimidating swordsmen come in the form of the Caden Cell swords. You get 3 of them, and while they do stand taller than Godric soldiers, they are also on the 30mm bases. I have to say, I'm not entirely sold on the sculpts here. I like the posing, but the left arm seems to be a touch too short and is hanging in a peculiar way. We also get 6 demi-humans, and these are suitably creepy. They are a similar size to the tarnished on 30mm bases, but look hunched and degenerate. They are armed with clubs that are bigger than they are. I particularly like their covered faces, it gives them an extra air of creepiness. The last of the regular enemies are some of the most annoying in the game, as they are fast and hard to hit, the Fanged Imps. Again, you get 6 of them, all identical, and they come on the 30mm bases. I love their little gremlin faces, stupid wings and spindly arms and legs. Hate them in a fight though. In addition to regular enemies, we have the advanced enemies. These are the mini-bosses and bosses. They activate multiple times in each combat round and have their own decks of initiative cards. For the most part, they are pretty darn big, but you do get 2 Godric Knights, which come on the standard 30mm bases. These are great. I love the straight upright posing, the massive shields, the ornate armour and flowing cloaks. Really nicely done. Next is the Beastman of Farum Azula, an early dungeon boss, and I like this miniature a lot. There is a lot of movement and violence in the wide swing of his gnarly cleaver-style weapon. He's on a 50mm base, making him the last of the smaller scale bosses. From here on out, we are into the grander scale stuff that Steamforged Games is well known for from games like Dark Souls and Monster Hunter. You get one Erdtree Burial Watchdog on a 75mm base. I find these incredibly creepy. The weirdly angled limbs and the demonic face with wide staring eyes are very unsettling. At the time of making this video, I haven't yet faced a watchdog, but I know they become increasingly unpleasant in the video game, and I am looking forward to seeing if the board game iteration is a suitable challenge. Next we have not one, but two of the massive demi-human chiefs, and these were a challenge to take down as you face them both at the same time. I won't spoil it, but fighting them involves an interesting twist on standard boss encounters, forcing you to think in a different way. I love the miniatures too. They are an imposing size astride their 75mm bases, and I really like the posing. There is a sense of coiled potential energy, like they are preparing to leap into a savage frenzy. You also get two of the trolls, and these guys are incredibly impressive. They are on 75mm bases and stand around 120mm tall, and yet somehow they still aren't the biggest threat in the box. Great sculpts again, lots of incredibly grim detailing on the exposed guts, and these screaming faces really suggest a mixture of rage and pain. I would imagine trying to deal with two of these at once would be unpleasant. Next is the last of the miniatures on a 75mm base, and probably my favourite miniature in the box. It's a character I am sure even those with only a passing knowledge of Elden Ring will know, the Tree Sentinel. In the board game, he turns up early as a tutorial boss to show you the ropes, but he will hunt you down again later on for another round. The miniature is beautiful, with lovely fine detailing on the horse's barding, and the Sentinel's massive shield looks great. Steamforged Games have also managed to capture him in his classic jabbing you to death while you roll around on the ground pose. I can definitely see Elden Ring fans painting this and putting it on their desk by the computer. And that brings us at last to the big bad, the head honcho, the final boss in this core set, Margit the Fell Omen. This guy really is huge, standing on a 100mm base, although incidentally there are still even larger miniatures in the Elden Ring range, including a dragon on a 140mm base. Margit is a really sturdy chunk of plastic with a great pose. It's as if he is advancing while preparing to wind up a massive swing. The lopsided stance and billowing cloak give him a cool sense of forward motion, and you can easily imagine him hurtling into combat to put some foolish ambitions to rest. And that is it. 54 miniatures, 19 unique sculpts, 39 on 30mm bases, 8 on 50mm bases, 6 on 75mm bases, and 1 on a 100mm base. I think the gigantic beasts of Monster Hunter are probably more impressive, and the Dark Souls range appeals to me more because I have a stronger connection with the video game. But here, Steamforged Games have once again shown that they can do really good quality pre-assembled board game pieces ready to use right out of the box. It's a solid range of varied enemies for the game, a good collection of Elden Ring sculpts for fans, and a decent grab bag of interesting foes and NPCs for Dungeons & Dragons or any miniatures agnostic tabletop game. I wouldn't necessarily suggest picking up the game just for the miniatures, as the game isn't exactly cheap, but if you were planning on getting the game anyway, I can't see anyone being disappointed with the plastic on offer. But I think that just about does it for me. Do remember that Elden Ring is currently available for pre-order, and you will find a link to the Steamforged Games web store in the video description below. And with that, all that's left for me to say is thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really like the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone, bye bye.